Hi, welcome to The Wealthy Woman, the interview series on taking control of your wealth and health. It's your resource for mindset shifts, new ideas, and actionable recommendations that will take you one step closer to taking control of your financial wellness journey. I'm your host, Virginia Asher, and today I have with us Marie Burns. Marie Burns is a certified financial planner professional and a women's financial advocate, also a podcaster and an author. And we are going to talk about all that good stuff. Uh, and what I always remember about Marie, who I do know in real life, is that she is a fellow Vanguardian. She worked at the Vanguard Group after I did. So Vanguard's a great place to work if you want to get the basics, if you want to learn great customer service, you want to learn the basics of investing, IRAs, all kinds of stuff. It's just a great place to learn if you like learning. So welcome, Marie, my
Hey,
fellow Vanguardian.
yes, ma'am. So glad and excited to be invited, and we have similar hearts of passion. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. So, I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about how you got to where you are. Uh, I see you as a very successful and let's say prosperous person. I hesitate to use rich when I talk to people because I think that is not a very well-defined word. So I look
Mhm.
at wealthy as being, you know, having the money you need and the health that you desire to have a good life. So give us a little background on how you got here.
Sure. Well, I guess I understand that our audience is women, and we are women, and I think every woman, no matter what our role is currently, was impacted today by what happened in our childhood. So I just briefly touch on that to say that as a kid, I was always looking for, the lemonade stand, and we did fundraisers for muscular dystrophy, and we were all about allowance. And so kind of the connection and interest with you have to work hard to earn money in order to do some fun things that you wanted, which the big thing when I was a kid was penny candy. Do they even have penny candy
I
anymore?
don't think so. Wouldn't that be nice though?
Oh my gosh. So anyway, that was a personal interest early on, and then I ended up getting very interested as a typical teenager college student in health and wellness. I went to a wellness university campus. And so my first career was as a registered dietitian. And after a baker's dozen years, I evolved. I had a business minor. I evolved into the financial services industry. So I tease people that I used to help people balance their diet and exercise. Now I help them balance their finances instead, because it's all behavioral, really.
It is. Yes, I agree with that 100%. I definitely think that a lot of the same mindsets that keep us unhealthy keep us poor and vice versa.
Very
So,
true. Very true. You know, part of the childhood situation, I think, is we forget that our physiologically, our brains were just, we've all said it, sponges. Children are little sponges, right? They hear things and mimic, they're like little parrots. And so we absorbed whatever our feelings and experiences were around money in the household that we grew up in. And so that has really impacted us, especially, I think it's helpful for women to realize that, because too often, I don't know what you see, but I see a lot of women feeling guilty that they either aren't comfortable with their finances, or they don't know what they think they need to know, or they have the mindset, I'm just not good at this. Well, that's negative talk in my opinion, but it's often based on the feelings
right.
that they got from
Yeah.
childhood, and then of course there were financial relationships along the way. But women
Yes.
have to recognize what impacted them and get rid of that guilt, because you have no ability to filter anything when you're a young child. It's absorb, and you can't filter it until later in life.
Yes, that's correct. I think that's a really important point because I do talk to a lot of women who feel like they should know things already. And I just say, you are where you are. Like, no one taught it to you. Like, how would you know it?
That's right. Our
Right.
whole society doesn't do a bad job. They don't do the job at all in this,
Right.
basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do think that's really important. And understanding what your story is from childhood, uh, from many standpoints, but definitely in the money standpoint, will allow you to recognize that, acknowledge that, and then say, okay, that served me at some point, but it's no longer serving me, and I can make this effort to change. So, curious if you've had a money story from your early life that you had to change or let go of.
I think my money story is more of what I saw in grandmothers. One grandmother was,
Mm.
of course, I wasn't there, but I learned about this. She was widowed in her 30s and then again in her 80s. Another grandma was widowed in her 50s, which, I don't think people realize. I think the average age of a widow in the United States is like
Really common.
58. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's way younger than you think it is. So it happens more often than you realize. And I had an aunt that was widowed and divorced through 3 husbands. So it's definitely an impactful situation that so often we have no control over, but to watch how each of them moved forward and, had to deal with the money side of their life, I think was very impactful for me to be thinking about. I didn't realize until much later in life that 90% of all women will be eventually left solely in charge of their household finances because
Yeah.
80% of married women experience widowhood.
Yes.
So that whole stat, I think, just hit me squarely in the face to say women need to be comfortable with or know more about or work someone who's going to help them be comfortable
Right.
with this whole money life side of things. Because don't plan on not happening to you. You're in the minority if it doesn't. That's so
Right.
awful to say, but it's true.
Yeah. It's hard to look at it that way, but that is the case. Those I've read all those same statistics. I think a lot of women grew up hearing that girls can't be good at money, or those, or at math, and they think
Oh,
that's
God, I hate that.
what money is. And that's, I mean, sure, you have to know what your numbers are, but there's lots of ways to do it without you having to be good at math. So I think that's
Absolutely.
important to point out.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I think the other big influencer while we're on that subject, besides childhood, is the relationships that we've been in with significant others. And there's been some interesting research. Hartford Insurance, I forget how many years ago, did some research and they found that most couples fall into one of 3 categories when it comes to their financial personalities together. There's the driver and passenger couple. One knows everything about and makes all the financial decisions, and the passenger, usually not always, is thrilled to not have to deal with that money stuff. Then there was the joined at the hip couple. That's the second category they found. They talk about everything together, make decisions together, but there's still just one doer that takes care of it all. And then the third category is the divide and conquer couple, where, like the joined at the hip, they talk about everything, are aware, make decisions together, but then they split the duties. One might do all the banking, one might do the investing, for an example.
Right.
And so what I was glad to see the research finished with was realizing which couple has the best survivor experience. And it's the divide and conquer couple, because whichever one it is, they're already used to doing and taking care of half of the
Yeah.
responsibility. So they've only got 50% dumped in their lap versus the other two could very well be 100% dumped in their lap. So that's the other realization that I hope women come to is, what category am I in? I've talked to women that say they've been through all 3 categories in different relationships in their life. And sometimes you can do something about the category you're in, and sometimes you're kind of stuck because the
Right.
partner is where he or she is and they're not willing to move.
Right.
So again, just being aware of where am I, and then what can I do about it, if anything. And like when I do my workshops, I get a lot of the driver women attending because they know the husband doesn't want to deal with this and they're worried about what happens if they go first. What's the husband going to do? So they make sure they have everything organized, everything in writing. They have somebody to come and help him, that they can rely on. So just another good
Yeah.
awareness.
Yes. And I think when if your partner or spouse is working with any kind of advisor, whether it's an accountant, a financial planner, whatever that expert is that knows your finances
Mhm.
better than you, that you should be developing a relationship with that person, so that even if you're not involved in all of the decisions, you are building that relationship. So if something does happen to your partner, then you know who to turn to rather than uh, looking for someone.
Right, because don't they say about 70% of women typically find a new advisor within a
Yes,
couple of years of after losing a spouse, because there was no
yes,
relationship there.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
And if someone is having problems with their spouse being on board with them being involved, um, I usually say, I know it's morbid, but what's going to happen if you drop dead of a heart attack or get hit by the proverbial bus or whatever? Do you really want your spouse to have no idea how to survive?
right,
Right.
right. No, and
So,
that's really what prompted me to write a lot of my checkbooks and my initial books, I think, was the having things written down and organized so that it's like the Murphy files, right? The Murphy files are you're supposed to be able to walk into an office and just pick up where the last person left off because it's all there and understandable.
mhm,
So the
yes,
writing it down part or recording it and organizing it is the challenge for most people. It feels like a morbid subject to think about, but it's really so helpful for the family.
yes. And I think Marie and I were both talking about this earlier, that a lot of people don't like to do their wills or estate plans because of that idea that it's morbid or they don't want to think about it. Marie, do you want to talk a little bit about that and how you are addressing that?
Sure, absolutely. Again, I think the whole estate planning, what happens if I'm gone or in the hospital side of financial planning is the most procrastinated area because it's negative thoughts, right? It's
Yeah.
nobody wants to think about that stressful time in life. And yet we talk about so many what ifs, right? What if I'm disabled or somebody passes away early or I need long-term care? Those are potential situations, but the I'm going to be gone part is 100% guaranteed. And yet we don't want to talk about it or do anything about it because it's not fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people need a nudge usually. And unfortunately, too often the nudge is I'm divorced now or I'm widowed now. So how do I prevent my family from having to go through what I just went through? Or my parents. I've just went through this with my parents, for example. People find themselves in that situation a lot. So too
Yes.
often it's because you've had a negative experience that you're finally motivated to move forward. And still
Yes.
60% of Americans die without those documents in place. So
Yep.
it's really, again, frustrating. But then again, where do we learn about any and all of this
Right.
importance of
And people,
doing it? And we don't.
and from, working with a lot of young people, what I found is people think they don't have anything. And I always remind them that if you had to move today, what would you take with you? You have something and you'd be surprised who's going to fight over it. I had a grandfather that died and people were fighting over his fishing poles at the funeral. Okay. Someone wants your stuff.
Yes, it's the stuff typically that you'll hear the most stories about because there's emotional attachments there. And
Yeah.
usually that's also partially because that was a he said, she said. There was no beneficiary designation on the fishing pole. There was nothing in writing on the fishing pole. And so that's one of my little checklist items. They officially in the legal lingo world call it a personal property disposition list, which is literally you can take a piece of paper and write down exactly what it is. Don't just say my ring, say my size 7 ruby ring, whatever goes to, don't say my niece, say her name, Sally, and then sign a date and then keep it updated and in with your other documents. But so those are the kinds of things that I've had since I've been an advisor for over 20 years. When I'm working with individual clients, we kind of do what I call the before checklist. What should you have in place before anything tragic happens, like you're incapacitated or you're gone? And so that's where my first book came from. I guess back in 2018, I literally took the checklist that I use with clients and wrote, I love the publisher's name. It's Itty Bitty. Itty Bitty, it's an itty bitty book. It's a purse-sized book. It fits in your purse and it's literally in bullet point format. Because my thing is, people often don't want to know all the rationale, especially on a subject they don't love to think about. It's like, just cut to the chase and tell me what I need to do.
Yeah,
That's what my book was.
I
It's a
agree.
bullet point checklist.
That's
So
your Vanguard showing.
yes,
Remember
that's got to be
the
efficiency,
plain
efficiency.
talk publications they used to have, the plain talk. Yeah.
And people appreciate that, I think. They know it's important. They don't need to be sold on that it's important. They just need to
Right.
know how to move forward. So this is little steps, one thing at a time. And so I wrote the before checklist. It's really the 15 things that you should do or have in place before somebody that you love is gone, whether it's you or somebody else. And then, of course, after that, you have to come up with the after checklist, which I jokingly say when I'm talking about this book is this is the book you buy and you don't read. You just put it in the file because that's for who needs it down the road when it's after someone is gone. And whoever it is, they're in brain fog. It's a traumatic time and you just need a checklist to kind of keep moving forward on some things that are timely. What do I need to do in the first couple of weeks? How about the next month? How about the next several months? So at least keeps you moving forward while you're dealing with, the grief aspect of it, which is always difficult.
Yes.
So I have those books on my website, which is mindmoneymotion.com, and of course on Amazon.
And we will put that in the show notes for everyone and in the email so that you can find Marie and her amazing little itty bitty books. I love it so much. And I love what you were talking about with couples because one of the types of classes that I do is working with couples, often in groups, because it is really hard to talk about money. But money disagreements are one of the biggest reasons people get divorced. So how do we prevent the divorce? We have to talk about money, even if it's uncomfortable. There's an author that I love who talks about just get naked and have your budget meeting, right? Like you can't argue when naked, right? So
Here's another one to add to that. I heard the other day there's actually a website called Budgeting is Sexy. Okay,
budgeting is sexy.
budgetingsexy.com. So whatever it takes to have the conversation is
Yeah.
worth it.
Yeah. And I think, part of that conversation is I actually know a couple that, like, as long as they've been married, they have a monthly meeting to check in.
That's awesome.
And they don't do it at home. They go out and do something. And then I think Ramit Sethi does this as well, but I don't know if he got it from them or they got it from him. But they go once a year, they leave town and have their like big meeting about goals and budget and all the good stuff while they're not at home and they're having fun.
Yes.
So, that kind of stuff
Beautiful.
can actually be, you can find ways to make it fun and to some degree even automated. And I know that Marie, you're a big fan of automation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And before I talk about that, I wanted to just chime in on what you're saying about those the meetings, the couple meetings. And I think one icebreaker way to start that, if you aren't in the habit of doing that, is to talk about exactly what we started with, which is understanding each other's baggage, for lack of a better word. Do you know how your spouse, your significant other grew up? What was money like in their household? What do they remember? Do they have a money memory from when they were kids? Because just even understanding, why is he the spender? Why is he the saver? That will come to light when you start to talk about childhood and then even what other relationships they might have been in that could have changed them, scarred them, impacted them, so just understanding each other's how did I get here today, I think is a beautiful way to start talking about money, even if there's no numbers involved. It just gets you better understanding your
Yeah.
big picture as a couple.
Yes, definitely.
So the autopilot, absolutely. I wish we would teach this early on about so many things. And I think it was David Bach probably that came out with the automatic millionaire.
Yes,
And he, I think, was so wise to kind of delineate so many ways that you're basically trying to figure out how to use money as a tool, but take the emotion out of it. So
right.
you decide once, yes, this is important. I'm going to sweep money to my savings, X amount, X often. Same thing with my 401k or funding my Roth or whatever you're saving for a house or whatever the goal is. But the concept of all the things that you can autopilot in your life financially, even bill paying, so that you decide it's important and you do it once, and then you're more likely to keep doing it because now you put it on autopilot. So I have a checklist. I've kind of nutshelled. I like to keep things to one page. Otherwise, it just feels overwhelming. And a lot of people are like me, where there's a checklist, so you at least know where you're going, and you can kind of feel good about, oh, there's 12 things here, and I have 6 of them done already. I'm gonna check those off right away. But then you at least it's not overwhelming. You say, oh, there's half a dozen left. When do I want to tackle one? Or I don't agree with that. That's not going to work for me, but you have some more ideas. So that's a freebie download on my website under the resources section. Mind, Money, Motion. Look at the resources. I've got a variety of checklist tools.
Yeah.
And that one, Autopilot Your Finances, happens to be one of my absolute favorites.
Yes, I like that a lot. Um, yes, I was reading a book recently. It's escaping me the name of it, but they were talking about it for other things besides money as well. How you can take so much stress out of just your kind of your daily living by uh, taking the things that you know are always happening and find ways to make it a little more automatic. Uh,
Absolutely.
and such a great idea because we all have decision fatigue at this point, right?
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I
And
don't know if that's always been around, but it's definitely a thing.
well, and just the whole human inertia, when I go back to caveman days all the time, they were kind of waiting for the next thing to respond to, and that was just survival. And now these days, it's almost like we need to be intentional with our movements forward versus just hanging back passively waiting for something to happen, especially with money. That's never going to go the right way. And
Right.
the example of autopiloting, let's, just say you're going to start contributing to a Roth or put money into your savings, whatever, you usually have an immediate number in mind. Okay, I think I'll do whatever, $50. And I think what the research has found, and this is kind of a mental trick for yourself, is to say, okay, whatever your number is, inch it up. Start with that inched up number. Maybe it's 75 instead of 50. Even if you think, I'm not sure I can swing it, remind yourself you can always change it later. But human inertia is you're not going to change it. You're going to adjust to it, and it's going to be good that you went with the higher number because you're probably not going to go in and change it later. And so you benefited in the long run.
Yes. Yes. I agree with that. It's we just women especially, we just have so many decisions to make all the time.
Yes,
So if you can take some of those out of the equation, it'll give your mind a little bit of a break, which
absolutely.
one of the biggest sources of stress for women is money. So if you can automate your money decisions, that will reduce some of your stress because stress is not good for us. Uh,
Oh, exactly.
I don't know if you've heard, stress isn't good for us. So, yeah, that's very insightful. I love all of what you said. That's amazing insight. I Do you talk about these things on your podcast?
Yes, my podcast is called the same thing as my financial education business, which is Mind, Money, Motion. And I always tell people, remind them, it's in alphabetical order: mind, money, motion. That's a way to remember how to find it. But my background was, as a registered dietitian and understanding the importance of diet and exercise. I really wanted to tie that together in this and the impact of being healthy on your overall money life. Because so the business title is the more you take care of your mind and your body, the less you have to worry about running out of money. So good health costs less usually in the long run. And of
Right.
course, there's also the aspect of if you're not healthy, you can't enjoy life. And I remember, and I've gotten into the habit of capturing little sound bites or little quotes or well said things that I try to remember then and incorporate into some of what I'm doing. And here's one that really, I think, came from an AARP bulletin, but
Mm.
captured it so well to say that people have to be mindful that nothing works unless you're in good health. So
Yeah.
you have to be so focused first on being in good health. Everything. That should be your number one priority, because money you can make or lose or make wise or not wise decisions. But if you don't take care of your health, it's all over.
Yeah.
So my podcast, I try to bring in experts on all of the above: positive mindset, brain health, dietitian talking about and exercise, people talking about the motion and feeding our body side. And then of course, on the money side, I'm really most focused on getting your financial house in order, because I think that's, especially for women, not just planning for down the road when we're by ourselves, but right now we need to see and understand what we have. That's our starting point in getting more comfortable. And so all of my tools and workshops are designed around that.
Yes. I agree with that 100%. I think we're scared to see where we are, but if you don't see where you are, you can't see what the progress is, right?
Right.
If you go to a personal trainer, they're going to document where you are today before you start working with them.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to physical therapy, they do some kind of assessment to see where you are right now so they can see how much progress you make. So you have to do the same thing with your finances. You have to make sure you know where you are today, even if it's not the picture you want. You're If you are very in debt or something where maybe your net worth is negative, uh, progress means that you make that number smaller, right?
Right.
Before you go the other direction and start making it bigger in the positive side. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, definitely. I was going to ask you something on the first thing you said, and it just slipped my mind. I'll come back to it, I'm sure. Um, so when when you say that you would like people to enjoy their financial planning, is there any other advice that you would give to women to try to get, um, or any books that you might recommend besides your itty bitty books, to start making that shift in their mindset that money is fun?
Mm-hmm. I think the mindset, hopefully, is that money is a tool.
Yeah.
And I wish our society was better about recognizing that it's a life skill tool, that just like math and reading, we need to learn how to use it. So especially I think for women, we have this insinuation at some point that it's kind of a reflection of who we are and our value. And I almost hate the net worth concept. I wish we
Right.
called it something else,
I
because
know.
it's not what you are worth. It's what I like to think of it as, it's your financial inventory. Have you
Right.
taken an inventory lately to see what's in your toolbox, what tools you have to use? I won't get emotionally attached to my tools, whether they're makeup tools or computer writing tools, or men have a box of tools a lot of times, or women. The whole concept of money is a tool. And so compiling the financial inventory, let's call it a net worth statement. I even have a worksheet that's called my net worth summary, is a huge tool for you to look at, even just from the standpoint of, oh, this is how much I have at the bank. This is how much I do or don't have saved for retirement. This is how much debt I have. This is how much I have in property, real property or personal property. At a glance, you can start to have reactions like, oh, I didn't realize I had that high of a net worth, or, oh, I thought I had more in retirement, or, oh, I really don't have much in savings in the bank. Just the general realizations from looking at your toolbox inventory is a helpful reinforcement to say, yep, I better do something about that. And so whether it's I started to put some books on Goodreads. I know I have some, I
I
haven't
love
kept
good.
up with it. So I have a nice list on Goodreads if you go to Goodreads. And I love to read, but there gets to be so many that I probably haven't kept up with posting. But I'm a
I
huge fan
try.
of David Bach's books, I think, because
Yeah.
again, break it down and give you some manageable steps to move forward. And that's what it's really all about is the moving forward part. You can get all educated and do nothing, but you have to move forward. So that's why looking for tools, I think, is helpful. And you just learn even just in the process of using the tools.
Yes. It's kind of like doing a food journal, like when you're trying to
Yeah,
improve your nutrition, or I mean, a lot of people do it to lose weight, but if you were trying to uh, really what you're trying to do is improve your health,
exactly.
uh,
Habits. Yeah.
right? So uh, you keep a food journal, and then when you start looking at it, you start to see the patterns of, okay,
Exactly.
I eat these things because I'm feeling like this, or something like that. If you're keeping track of that. And I actually, when I work with people that are just starting to do budgeting, uh, or allocating their funds for what they really want to spend their funds
Right.
on,
Sure.
that's what budgeting is, people.
It's a spending plan. I wish we would change that word
It's your
too.
yes plan.
Yeah, there you go.
So a lot of people think that a budget is telling you what you can't buy, but your budget should be telling you what you can buy, and that means you're not going to buy these other things that are not as important. So
Hmm.
when we talk about that,
Well,
we have to just keep in mind that it's just part of the process. And if we're keeping track of our spending, we should think about what we're feeling when we're spending money on certain things. And as you start to see those patterns, then you can break the pattern, right?
absolutely. Excellent. Values first. I got it.
Yes. Yes. And I'm also a big reader, so I love that. I'm on Goodreads. Uh, I listen to audiobooks, so when you see my
Mhm.
numbers, don't be surprised because I don't have TV. And especially last year, I had some surgeries that I couldn't use my eyes for a while. So there was a lot of audio booking.
Awesome. Awesome. Very efficient.
Very efficient. We're not going to just lay here and do nothing. We're going to get some audiobooks in, okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Well, I know, like myself, that you have such a passion for financial literacy and that you do some volunteer work. So I was really wanting to highlight what you do in that area.
I think we're a little similar. I had been involved for a bit, and my tendency, fortunately or unfortunately, is that I have to weave in and out of things. I
Hmm.
also have 9 grandchildren in 3 states, so that takes me out of the commission of being a local volunteer quite a bit throughout the year. But the Financial Planning Association with some of their financial literacy efforts. I've been involved in and out of my church with Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's program.
Hmm.
And I have to say, I have a lot of respect for him and his program. I know our industry doesn't agree with everything that he teaches, and I am also one of them. But there's enough good there, I think, that helps people get on the right track in some areas.
Yes,
So
I'd
have
agree
seen
with
that
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 entire
work
sentence.
well. Yes. And then locally here in Arizona, we certainly have the Arizona Council on Economic Education. We
Yeah.
have the task force for financial literacy going on at the state level. So trying to be at least aware of, an ambassador for the Financial Awareness Foundation, which is an international organization trying to move the needle, on
Yeah.
financial illiteracy not being the epidemic that it really is. So
Yeah,
just very
a
like you,
great organization.
trying
Yes.
not to spread ourselves too thin and yet contribute where we can, because we just know how my tagline is less worry, more life. You know,
Yeah.
you can nail down some of this money stuff to enjoy less worry and more life. Who doesn't want that?
Right. And I think so many women are givers. So,
Absolutely.
when you think about your volunteer efforts and, having family priorities and work priorities and all these things, um, one of the things I run across when I'm working with women of all ages is they want to do more in their community, but they don't have the money. And when they are business owners or they aren't um, advocating for themselves in the workplace, um, I always go down the road of, are you asking for enough money? Because we like to give our services away for less than they're worth because we want to help that person. Uh, but there's repercussions of that, right? Do you find that in the clients you work with as well?
Yeah, I think you're right. That's a female tendency, is we undervalue ourselves and we aren't as assertive or aggressive, whichever word you want to pick there, in asking to be equitably compensated. And the stats all bear that out. I don't know if we make more than 80 cents on a dollar anymore. That used to be what it always was. And then of course, women are often the caregivers that are in and out of the workforce for a variety of reasons. So there goes your 401k balance in comparison with, a man. So and then we live longer. And so there's just a lot of challenges, that we have
Yes.
to realize are stacking the deck against us a bit. So it makes you even really need to be more mindful of what is your situation, and how are you going to use the tools that you have to
Yeah,
move forward.
definitely. Definitely. Well, I love everything you've talked about today. It's really just uh, so many takeaways, so many nuggets of your financial knowledge and your life experience. And I hope that our audience gets a lot out of this as well. So I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Did you want to talk a little bit about your freebie that we're going to have on the website?
Yep, absolutely. And I know we're trying to plug April as National Financial Literacy Awareness Month. That's when a lot of us in the industry try to really raise awareness and do a little bit extra education. And then October is kind of the other big one with National Estate Planning Awareness Month. But regardless of the month, I always have some freebies on my website, mindmoneymotion.com. Go to resources, and there's everything from books to checklists to bundles of checklists. I've now kind of added a video course with my Suddenly Single bundle. So there's just a variety of, there's videos on YouTube. I mean, it's however you best learn. I do workshops now in the months of April and October, so that's coming up, and those are always free and targeted for women. So please check those out as well. It's how you best learn. What is your
Yeah.
best mode of wanting to glean more information and help yourself move forward? So check it out, mindmoneymotion.com.
Yes. Thank you so much, Marie. It's been such a pleasure talking with you today. I, of course, will talk with you soon, but I hope you have a good afternoon, and we will probably speak on your podcast at some point.
Yes, ma'am. That's the plan.
All right, everyone, have a good day.